But I was saying all of that violent shit to say that, hey, look here. Sometimes you got to mind your own business. When people are having issues, yeah,
Yeah.
you want to protect women, but sometimes women don't want to protect themselves. And you don't need to put yourself in harm's way for some shit that ain't got nothing to do with you. And that person is choosing to make a decision to deal with some shit that they shouldn't deal with. And maybe you get the opportunity to have a conversation outside of the heated discussion and say, hey, you don't have to live this way.
I think
But
choice is interesting though. Like I do this lecture in a class that I'm a teaching assistant for, and it's at the School
okay.
of Nursing. And the idea of autonomy, or like you have full control over your destiny, I think is interesting because there in real life there's not many people who are fully autonomous. Like you think you're making your own decision, but you're making a decision in a constrained environment, right? Like based off of how much money you have, based off of who you grew up with as your parents, where you grew up, where you went to college. Like you actually aren't really making the choice autonomously. You're making it in context of all the constraints that you have in your life. And I would say the same thing for like when people tend to end up in like violent partnerships or they're not always physically violent, right? Like people can take advantage
No.
of you economically or emotionally. Um, but yeah, I always find that interesting. Like you said, context, right? Like if you read her whole book, maybe it's not surprising how she ended up here, or she actually didn't have much choice in the relationships that she chose. Like I don't know. I always like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Like sometimes it's difficult, but I don't know if you've seen this is very random, but Last Chance You, the basketball version.
I've
Um,
seen it on Netflix, but I've not watched it yet.
so good. I think it's great in compared to the other ones because personally, I feel like it's because they have an all black teaching or like coaching staff. And I think that changes the dynamic in terms of how the coaches relate to the kids
Okay.
personally. Um, but I'll say like Coach Mosley was like, sometimes the people who need the most love deserve it the least in that moment. And that's kind of how I prefer me to think. Now that does that happen all the time? No. But that's how I want to be.
So you say that, and as somebody who works with people and has people who help me do my job, right, that I'm responsible for, one of the hardest parts of the job is that balance because the people who require the majority of your attention are the people who shouldn't get it. And
Yes.
the people who
Those are
deserve
it.
your
Yes.
attention, they actually don't need it. And then you got those people in the middle who you don't really know what the fuck they got going on because they're 5'9", 180 pounds. They don't bother anybody. They blend in.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and they
Yeah.
just don't do anything wrong. They don't do anything particularly great. They're just there.
Yeah.
And there's a certain level of tension that they need because some of them could be some of your great ones if you tap into them the right way, Pauls. And
Right.
then even some of those, that 10% that gets 90% of your time, some of them, once you get them figured out, they're amazing.
Yeah.
You just got to get the motherfuckers figured out. And then you had the ones where you give all the time to because you like the person. Like you
Yeah.
genuinely like the person. But that person is terrible at their job.
Right.
They make terrible life decisions. And these life decisions have you going to meetings, reading emails, fielding phone calls, talking to baby mamas, ex-wives, and all this extra shit that has nothing to do with your job description.
Right.
And but you still like that fucker. It's easy when you
Right.
don't like them, but
Mm.
then when you actually like them, you go, "Oh, I see how Shorty fell for this. You have a nice personality. You are a great hang. You are a shitty person."
Right.
All can be true. And if you can't balance that, it will drive you absolutely nuts. And that's the unfortunate part of our society